Hey guys, welcome to Restore Q&A. Man, that was a great service. Worship team, man, they did a great job. If you get a chance to thank the production team, man, they killed it. They did an awesome job. So hey, welcome to Restore Q&A. I'm pulling up our socials here just while you're on to see any comments. What's up, Dory? See ya. And I am looking for it on YouTube. All right, we're live, baby. We live, baby. All right, we are up and running. So, man, a lot's been going on this week. Lots been happening. And so, just kind of wanted to use this as an opportunity for anybody to
We're live, baby.
mute that, for us to have a conversation. So, give me 1 second so I can turn my light. All right. Hey, Amanda. Thank you. Appreciate the compliments there. Hey, so there's been like I just mentioned, there's been a lot going on in the past week, and I've thought a lot about sharing my thoughts on social media. I thought a lot about sharing, just what had been going on in my mind and in my heart, but I just couldn't quite get it within 30-second sound clip, like a 2-minute message, and so this is actually a great place for us to have a conversation. Restore Q&A. Everybody seeing this okay? My computer's kind of weirding out on me, but I might be just trying to do too much. All right, yeah, I can see it. Very cool. Well, I'd love to keep the conversation going from the message. There was a lot of things in there that I would have liked to keep a conversation going about. One of the things that every now and then I can say something pretty good that I look at and I'm like, hey, that wasn't bad. But for Jesus to say that we need to show mercy on people who don't look like us, think like us, or vote like us. And to me, that's the example of a disciple. I mean, Jesus really set the example for breaking down racial barriers. Jesus didn't fail. My computer said that it's failing. Jesus a couple times.
That's the example.
Right, he walked through Samaria for the Samaritan woman. He makes a Samaritan the hero. A couple weeks ago, we in the parable of the Samaritan, the Good Samaritan, he made the Samaritan the hero. A couple weeks ago, we talked about the Syrophoenician woman, and Jesus is staying. He's staying a night with someone who's not Jewish. And then he talks to a woman who's not Jewish. He heals a woman's daughter who's not Jewish, and then he says to a woman who's, again, not Jewish, that her faith is what healed her daughter. And so Jesus really sets the example for racial reconciliation. And so if we as disciples of Jesus are gonna follow him, we have to be a part of that. Paul and Peter go at it over race. A lot of people make an argument that Peter carried a little bit of his Jewish racism um, into his ministry. Like it was something he fought against all the time. And so, guys, one thing that I want all of us to be aware of is when we read Scripture, we're distanced by 2,000 years, but the issues, man, a lot of them are still the same. Like we're still fighting this racial divide within the family of God, and man, I know that it breaks his heart. Along with that, Bree Wilson said it hurts my heart to watch our country divide and come against each other. Yeah, she said that COVID seemed to bring people together, and we found a way to divide ourselves. Like I know it's something weird for the pastor to say, but Jesus is the answer. He's the solution to all of it. For all of Restore Church people, if you're part of Restore Church and you're going to be a part of any protests or any kind of gatherings like that, one thing I'd ask you to do is keep in mind two things. One, I think that there is room for peaceful protests. I think there's definitely room for us to use our First Amendment or to make our voice heard. But just, again, keep in mind in the Ephesians passage, what Paul says, in your anger. It's okay to be angry. He doesn't say, don't be angry. But he says, in your anger, do not sin. We can show righteousness in our anger. We can show examples of Jesus and still be angry. So, look, go be angry. It's fine to be angry, especially over things that matter to God. But let's not use that as... Let's not let our anger get the best of us and cause us to sin. And so, man, that passage, we just kind of brushed by it in the sermon there for a second. But man, that's a sermon in and of itself, right? To be angry about what God's angry about, but while we're being angry, let's try not to do our best to sin. And so I just wanted to pass that encouragement. I'm gonna come over here to the comments. I appreciate y'all being a part of Restore Q&A and commenting. Kendra had a couple questions here. She said, what would you say to those who are angry? Oh, I didn't read it, but what would you say to those who are angry about what's happening to brothers and sisters who look different than we do? And how can we move on in action rather than sitting on our anger? I am white. I know, hard to tell probably through the lighting and the glow off of my head. But I was in conversation with someone actually last weekend, and I would say this, that for people who look different than me, and I could probably say this for most white people, let's listen. And I know I'm on this a lot. I talk about listening a whole lot. But if we're not listening, then we're interrupting. And man, there's nothing more frustrating than when someone interrupts you because they think they know what you're saying, or they think they know the answer for you. I can't imagine someone being frustrated because of their race, because they're not treated fairly or equally. And then someone like me, who is white, interrupting them, thinking that I know how they feel or I know what they're going to say. The reality is I don't. And so, look, I say, Kendra, and all of us, ask questions, listen. For any minority, person of color, I want to hear you. We as a church, we want to hear you. So speak. Like if you don't have anyone listening to you, I'll give you my phone number. I'd love to, and there's some great listeners. So that's what I would say. First of all, is listen, and I think, Kendra, in our listening, we can find action. I mean, there are a lot of spiritual actions, right? We can pray, fast over this, read what Scripture says. Then there are also some peaceful things that we can get ourselves involved in. I'm going to add this here. I really hope this doesn't turn into this. But, like, this can't become a situation where we polarize law enforcement. Not all police officers are racist. Not all of them are bad. We have many law enforcement that attend Restore Church and who have attended Restore Church. And they love God and they love people. And so for all my friends who are listening to this, dude, just because they have a badge doesn't make them the bad guy. Matter of fact, they still have my respect. The people who do crap like what we've seen this week, they don't have my respect. So let's make sure that we're not polarizing anybody. Matter of fact, let's encourage those good law enforcement agents that we know. Text them your appreciation. Thank them for keeping you safe. And really for treating people equally. Alright, I'm come back over, I guess, to the comments. I'm a slow reader. I'm working on it. Yeah, Eric has. Yeah, Eric, that's a good question. He says, how do we as Christians reconcile encouraging peaceful protest with Jesus overturning tables in the temple? And is this to be looked at through the river of context? Oh, Eric, thank you. You touched my heart with the river of context. I appreciate that. All right, so I'm going to just say some words here and let you interpret it because I've thought about the same thing. There's been a couple times where I was ready to make a video. It's still on my to-do list of like write a script for a video or talk about a video, talk about this subject. But every time I think about the riots, and I do have feelings about the riots, I think about Jesus in the temple. All right, so if you look at Scripture, why is Jesus angry? So let's ask that question first. Why are we angry? Jesus was angry because there were people in the temple courts. Now, selling things in temple courts was normal. I mean, it was a place of business. Some people would be there to buy things so they can sacrifice, right? But what Jesus found when he showed up, I think it's in John 2. When he shows up, he finds people who are taking advantage of people who are there to buy doves, John says. Well, if you go back and read in Luke, if you go back and read the law, when you come to offer a sacrifice, if you can't afford this, and if you can't afford this, and if you can't afford this, then you can buy doves to sacrifice. So then you fast forward to the life of Jesus, and when his parents come to the temple, what do they offer? They offer doves as a sacrifice. This really touched Jesus' heart because not only is it just poor people, but he can identify with that. So poor Christians are there to buy doves, to offer sacrifice, and they're being taken advantage of. Is Jesus justified in anger? Would God be angry about that? Yeah. Why are we angry? We're angry because people who don't look like us are being treated differently. Well, I should say people who don't look like me are being treated differently, and their lives are being taken, and they're scared. I have friends who are trying to raise their black kids. What do you tell them? What do you tell a 12-year-old boy? What do you tell your 15-year-old kid who just got his license? Or can you imagine the day after Mother's Day or that week, your African American son who wants to go on a jog? I'm angry. Like I'm so pissed about this. Is God also? Yeah, he is. So we're back to these riots. We're back to these flipping tables and things. Jesus flipped the tables of the money changers. Going into Target and taking a television is not affecting change. I know that you're angry. I get it. I'm angry for you. I'm angry with you. Burning down a library? How does that help anybody? So I preached a sermon a couple months ago, and it was about anger, and the theme through that sermon was anger always glorifies somebody. So in our anger, in the actions that come after it, we have to be careful to say, who is this glorifying? I mean, Jesus went in to defend the poor. We are not going to do this again, right? And so he pushes the tables over and those kind of things. If you go burn down a radio station, you burn down the city hall or the library, who does that honor? Who does that help to take a 65-inch TV out of Target? Who does that help to... there was one I saw, I'm sure you saw it too, where a man's a sports bar was burned down. What did he do? Who did he hurt? I don't know the answer to that, but in the scheme of all this, I don't really know his name. But what I do know is that, where does he go to work tomorrow? You know, like, what about the people who were trying to make ends meet? And or the people who just got hired at Target because they're trying to make a better life for themselves? Sorry, I could go on about it. The simple I don't know if any of this is simple, but I think the most simple way I can say it is, our anger every time has to glorify somebody. It does every time. And we can choose to glorify ourselves with our anger. And, you know, let's take the whole race thing off the table. When you're angry with your wife, who are you glorifying in your argument? You or God? If you're angry about abortion, with your actions, are you glorifying yourself and how you talk to people on social media who think different than you? Or are you glorifying God with how we respect people and how we talk with them? You know, your kids, parents, you get mad at your kids. Are you mad because they have a lot of energy and you're tired and you've lost patience? And so we flip off the handle, and then it's like, who do we glorify there? Or maybe they're not listening. Maybe with their actions, they're not honoring God with how they talk to their spouse, or not their spouse, their siblings, or how they talk to you. That's okay to be angry, but let's show the people around us what godly anger looks like. It glorifies Him every time in our actions and with what we say. That's a great question, man, and I've been trying to wrestle with the same thing. I don't know if that's a great answer, but that's the answer that that I have. It was long, but that's what pastors do, and I don't get to preach on Sunday, so here I am just talking. Anybody else over there, man? I see a couple people watching. Also, parents, if your anger is glorified, if your anger is justified, I still don't recommend throwing tables. That's probably not your best bet. All right. Well, I'm gonna sit here for a second because it's delayed, and I wrote a couple things down from, Eric said this in the comments that we need to stop and think who's being glorified by our actions. I'm not going to go back and revisit all of what I just said, but the stop and think is crucial. Stopping and thinking is crucial. I talked about, one thing that jumped out to me when I was listening to the sermon. Sometimes when you're preaching, you're not quite applying. You're just trying to do a good job of communicating. So listening to myself preach was kind of weird because the guy on the screen was talking to me. But man, if we're gonna love better, we have to listen better, and that stuck out to me. Not just in this conversation of race, but altogether. That's a great point, Kevin. Jesus says, "Turn the other cheek when we're personally wrong." Jesus flips tables when it comes to standing up for other people. Yeah, again, just be careful of who we're glorifying. Kendra, that's wise. That's good stuff. She says it seems like Jesus turned the tables to get attention. Not that Jesus was an attention seeker, but she said we can make big moves or take baby steps to invoke change and get the attention of those who listen to us in order to create effective change without causing more harm. Maybe in our culture, turning tables means introducing ourselves and our children to books about anti-racism, teaching ourselves and our kids about injustice and what breaks God's heart. And the best, here goes the pastor again, the best book is Scripture. And I'll say, I'll make a plug for Right Now Media. Thousands of Bible studies cover a ton of different topics. And actually, when our kids get restless during this service, we find a Bible study or a discussion on, or a lesson on Right Now Media, and they follow that. Sometimes we'll pull things from the Village email that has some resources. All right, guys. Well, I'll pause again just to see if there's anything else that you guys want to talk about, either from the service or culture or Restore Church, or Clemson football. I'm up for that. Man, we're set up really to have a great season this year, but with COVID throwing a kink anything. So I just say whoever's number one at the beginning of the season should be national champions, and I think that's Clemson. So yeah. Dory said, appreciate it. I'm glad you guys are pumped. Yeah, I would say, guys, like Kevin, he just said he stayed up late because his heart just hurt. And he said one thing to help calm him down was reading the Psalms. Then he added his own proverb there. It's like putting aloe on sunburn. That's good. Um, I want to share this if we with this one last thing. If you didn't if you didn't tune out for the Clemson thing, there's one more thing to say here. Aaron and I were talking a couple days ago. I think it was last week. Just about how Jacksonville as a city is a city that we decided to move to. Circumstances caused every other ministry or every other place that we lived. But Jacksonville was a city that we decided to move to. We decided to uproot our family. More importantly, it's where God called us to start a new church that loves Him, that loves people, that is dedicated to serving people who don't look like us, think like us, or vote like us. And so when we decided we were going to move here and recklessly love Jacksonville, what we found out was a lot of people don't love Jacksonville. And some of you who are watching, you didn't want to be here when you found out you got orders here, or some of you are here because you got married and moved here and then you got divorced and now you're stuck here or whatever. Some of you grew up here and you, like everybody in their hometown, you can't wait to get out. But man, I'm just gonna say it like this. We love Jacksonville. And we think it's the greatest city in the world because we choose to make it that. And I spent a lot of time this morning just alone and praying because I know that today, this afternoon, there is set up to be a peaceful protest outside of our Walmart on Marine. And my prayer is this: that peaceful is what it is. My prayer is that God is glorified through what happens. That George Floyd and his family are honored. That Ahmaud Arbery is honored. That every person of color, well, let's say this, every person, despite color, who is murdered unjustly, but especially for our people of color, I hope they're honored. But if you're there, what I'm begging you to do, and well, if you're there because you want change for our city. And I appreciate that. Let's keep that in mind. Man, I hope change comes from it. I really do. I hope hard hearts are changed. I hope minds are changed. I hope our city's changed. But please, in your actions, do not sin. In your anger, do not sin. And love this city. Love Jacksonville. Here's a couple things you can do. Pray for our city's leaders. Pray for our law enforcement. Pray for the leaders of your church, wherever you are. And that's what I ask you to do. Pray for the leaders of our country and leaders of nonprofits, all those things who are affected by not only what's happening but by COVID. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna jump off here. I appreciate you spending time with us. If you catch this late and it's not live, and you'd like to continue this conversation, man, just please send us a message. Send me a private message or an email. If you want to have coffee and talk, I want to listen. Remember tonight for all you Restored Church people or not, there's going to be the table, and they're going to talk about godly courage and what it looks like to have godly courage in your real life. So join there. One more thing to pray about. At 1 o'clock, we're going to have a baptism at the beach. And that's at the Topsail Beach, public beach access number 2. If you want to join us and celebrate We're gonna try to meet there around 1-ish, and so bring a towel and your bathing suit and a fishing rod or something. All right, guys. See you later.